Hello everyone, welcome to the next session. In this session, I would like you to guide you through a process of creating a node in the Crosser Control Center and then installing the Windows service locally so that you have the node running as a Windows service instead of a Docker container. So to begin with, we have the installation instructions that we will go through in detail written down in our documentation. So if you go to docs.crosser.io, you will end up on this page. And if you scroll down a little bit on the bottom left, you will find the installation instructions for different host systems in essence. This time we will focus on Windows. So all the steps we have written down in here. To begin with, the first thing that we want to do is we go to our control center, go to manage and nodes, and this will lead us to the active nodes page. What we want to do first is to register a new node. So this is something that, let's say we want it to be the name David Laptop. Then we can select if it be a production node or for dev and test. Important to understand is that if you click the advanced options for adding nodes, you get a pop-up for different things that you can work with. Docker credentials not needed for this setup since we use Windows. But further down here, you get the download, the zip file that you need in order to install the load locally. So first thing is to download the version that you want to install. I would always recommend to use the latest version. So download version number 5. In this case, in the future, there will be different versions coming up. So I have downloaded this already. I have it in my download folder right here just to save a bit of time. And the first thing that we want to do is to extract it. Now the question is where you extract it. What I prefer to do is to keep the installation path as short as possible. So I usually just go ahead and create a folder in C directly, which I call Crosser. And this is kind of the installation folder that I use. So now I go into the zip file, move through the folder structure. You will find the Win service folder, and this is basically what you need. So there is a host folder and the installation script as well. Another thing that you could think about for the future, if you kind of update a node or something, you might want to keep different subfolders for different versions. And we will come to this in the next video when we talk about the upgrade procedure, but this can become pretty handy. So you could say, I want to create a folder 5.0 for my node in that specific version, and then you kind of extract everything from the archive into this folder. Once this is done, you can copy the path from the top from your Explorer, and this kind of gives you the root folder for the Crosser service setup. This is explained here as well. Just to keep in mind, try to keep the installation path as short as possible, up to your personal preference if you want to create subfolders like I did for specific versions, or if you want to keep it just in the root folder of Crosser. That's completely personal preference. I will just go through this as you see right now. The next thing is that the installation script is not signed, meaning that usually you have to unblock it from the Windows security perspective. So go to the properties, check unblock, click apply, and OK. Otherwise, Windows will prevent you from executing this installation script. Once that is done, we can open up the PowerShell and navigate into the folder where we have installed extracted the installation script. And then if you follow the installation instructions, the first thing is to check the execution policy. Keep in mind that based on the version of the PowerShell that you use, these commands might be a bit different, but most of them are similar regardless of version you use. So first thing is I checked my execution policy and it is set to remote signed. Remote signed will not work since the script is not signed. So that being said, I need to set it to unrestricted temporarily. Next time you open a PowerShell, it will be resetted. Once this is done, you should be able to run the installation script from the PowerShell here. So let's see if that works. Great, something is being executed. Now, the first thing that the installer asks you to do is to pass in the node ID. Since we have not pressed the add button in the control center, we don't see any node ID or access key yet. But when we click it, we get the pop-up with the credentials, node ID and access key. Keep in mind that these credentials cannot be shown later on. So if you need to reuse them eventually, I suggest you save them somewhere. So we just passed in the node ID and then the access key. And this should be everything that you need. What you will recognize is that the node now creates a crential.json file which holds the encrypted keys. So that should be it for the installation process. We now see that the service is registered. It's currently in the state stopped. And now if we press run and wait for a few seconds, then the service should be running already. That's it for the installation in the start. We can now type an exit, and this kind of basically finishes the procedure. And now you see that my node has popped up as online. We should be able to see it now in the Windows Service Overview. Let me expand this window a little bit. So you now see the cross-server services running here, and that is kind of the baseline. So now if we move back to the installation instructions, there is also the option to set up the Python environment. This is required on Windows, since on Windows we install the node as a service and cannot deliver the Python environment as part of our installation package. It's different on Docker. There you have everything in one container, so this step is not required for the Docker setup, but it is required for the Windows setup. So if you plan to use the Python bridge module at some point, I suggest that you set up the Python environment right away, and we will just use the Python environment which is available on the operating system. So what we need to do is, first we need to find the installation path or the executable path for Python. There's different ways how you can figure this out. I prefer to use a short command in the PowerShell, and that gives you kind of the path where the Python executable is located. Then we need to tell the node to use this runtime based on the path. So we go back into our folder, navigate to host, navigate to data, and here you find a file called appsettings.json. I will open this file in Notepad+, since it has a pretty nice plug-in to format JSON. There we go. And now you see under Edge Node configuration, external programs, Python free. This is the default path that we use when running in a Docker container. And this now needs to be adjusted to whatever you have on your system. One thing to keep in mind is that, let me drag this down a little bit. This command will give you the path to Python with backslashes, but in the JSON file, you need to use forward slashes. Everything else can just be copied from here. So I will copy this one, open up the app settings JSON, replace the backslash with /, and then I need to add python.x here. That should be it. Saving this file, and then all we have to do is to restart the service once. And if everything went okay, the service should now be online again. We can also check this in the local logs. So let's see how this looks like. So this is the initial start, the node connected to the control center, looks fine. And then we restarted the node from the same folder. Looks good so far, no complaints that the Python path cannot be accessed or something. So things look good. So now to verify everything, we go back to our Flow Studio. I will just use a simple flow with just an interval module set to interval 0 but run on start. And then I just use the Python bridge module in complete default setup with just this example script in between. Now there's one thing to keep in mind. In order to communicate with the external Python environment on your host system, we use gRPC IO and protobuf. If everything goes well, the Python bridge module and the Windows service will install all the dependencies gRPC IO and protobuf automatically. If that does not work out well, then you will be notified, and then you might have some local package conflict. Again, since we use the Python environment which is already existing, we don't have much control over it. So if that fails, you might have to manually install gRPC IO and protobuf. But let's just hope for now that everything works. So I have these two modules. I've enabled debug. I will connect to my node. And then once I'm connected, I can go to the debug part, start the process, start the flow, and then if everything went well, we should see hopefully just debugging output and not an error message. And this looks good. Good. So that's all you have to do to install and use the node in the full functionality on Windows. Keep in mind that if you want to use the Python bridge, you have to specify the Python environment in the app settings.json file. That should be it for now. Thank you for listening in and hope to see you in the next one.